From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good Friday afternoon. Thank you for joining us for your MTN statewide noon news. I'm Victoria Hill in for Andrea Lutz. We begin in VAUGHN, where one person was shot and killed in a bar fight. It happened at the Office Bar on Highway 89 around 8:30 last night. Cascade County Sheriff Jesse Slaughter says the death was the result of an altercation between two men. The victim died after being taken to the hospital. The names of the two men involved or details like what started the fight have not been released. Elsewhere, law enforcement shot and killed a suspect who murdered a man and kidnapped a woman. It all started early Thursday morning in Great Falls. Police say the suspect shot and killed a man there, then took a woman hostage. A neighbor witnessed the crime and called 911. The suspect then got in a vehicle and took off with the hostage, leading law enforcement on an hours-long chase, which ended in a standoff on Highway 2 near West Glacier. The Flathead County Sheriff says the man was shot after pointing a gun at officers. The kidnapping victim was not injured and is safe. A terrible case out of Gallatin County might actually have a happy ending after a dog was dragged down a busy road while tied to a car bumper. MTN's Cody Boyer has more.
In the early morning hours of July 7th, Sheriff Dan Springer here at the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office says his department received what he calls a disturbing phone call of possible animal cruelty when a dog appeared to have been dragged more than half a mile behind a car before anyone noticed that it was gone. Now, warning, these pictures you're about to see are highly graphic and considered disturbing, and there's much more to this story.
There was definitely a question of like, is this dog going to make it or not?
A call that you'll have to hear from Sheriff Dan Springer to believe.
There was an individual that tied his dog up to a bumper while they were inside and doing their, just getting a get together. But the vehicle who he tied him up to, he didn't know, that person, she did not know that the dog had been tied to the car.
Dragged more than a half a mile at the end of a rope. Sheriff Springer says deputies searched for the dog named Marley and eventually found a pair of brown eyes peering up from a ditch.
Took quite a bit of work. One of my deputies in particular, she was tenacious about it and was able to locate the dog. It just barely was moving, and so it was not doing very well.
Marley was immediately taken to receive emergency vet care, covered with serious injuries. Springer adds it wasn't until more recently that what really happened became known.
Certainly unintentional. It appears like they did not know that the dog had been tied to the car. Obviously someone did tie the dog there, which is a really bad location to put a dog. So there are charges being investigated. That's kind of down the road. Right now it's about getting the dog fixed up, and dog's doing really well.
And those brown eyes are not without help. In less than one day, the community stepped up, raising more than $15,000 online for Marley's vet care. And although Marley's injuries are horrific, Springer says Marley is expected to make a full recovery.
I knew when this was going to go out that we were going to have a huge response to it, and that's just the expectation I would have from this community, and of course we did. And so yeah, it's awesome.
In Gallatin County, Cody Boyer, MTN News.
And since Cody finished his story yesterday, Marley's GoFundMe has raised more than $23,000 of that $20,000 goal. And before we get to Miller, check out this video sent to us by BIA Crow Fire. The video was captured yesterday about 16 miles northeast of Crow Agency in the 965-acre South Tullock Creek fire. It's called a fire whirl, and they happen when there's instability in the atmosphere. Now, this video just screams heat, hot, and fire safety, a sign of what's to come this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Extreme heat right there, folks. I had somebody ask me one time, we also call them fire devils, could it kill you? Ooh. Absolutely. Could burn you up, burn you to a cinder. It's extreme heat, and that's fire and ash that you see whipping around there in those winds. So you don't want to be, let your guard down if you're taking video or photos of a fire tornado or a fire devil, we like to call them, because those things are deadly. Speaking of the fire, the smoke, well, most of the state, we do have at least moderate to heavy smoke. And now, not all of this is coming down to the surface, so don't think that everybody's going through the same thing. Basically, what we've got is just, this stuff is just going to keep piling in, at least at the higher elevations. We could see some of this stuff mixed down to the surface as well. So over the next several days, folks, if you have asthma or you have respiratory ailments, you might want to limit your time outdoors. And of course, the heat's going to be an issue as well. We've got temperatures right now in the 70s and 80s and 90s. We're only getting hotter. We have some excessive heat we have to deal with, and we could see some record temperatures as well. We'll take a look at that with the main forecast coming up.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Miller.
Okay.
Montanans are taking advantage of a new incentive designed to get people back to work. Over 22,000 unemployed Montanans were eligible for a $1,200 payment from the state government if they re-entered the workforce and kept the job for 4 weeks. So far, 3,200 people have applied for the program. Republicans who helped develop the incentive say it's working, and the state has seen fewer people apply for unemployment since it launched. But state Democrats fear the claims aren't being processed fast enough since only 21 applications have been approved so far. Others worry it doesn't address some of the main issues keeping people from getting jobs.
Access to affordable and consistent childcare, to a consistent schedule that works for people and their families, and access to affordable housing are three major barriers to workforce development and meeting our workforce needs in the state of Montana. Eliminating the enhanced unemployment benefits we thought was a rash decision.
The Department of Labor and Industry says they're planning to shift resources to get return to work payments processed faster. They also expect to have updated numbers on the program later today. Senator Steve Daines and fellow Republicans on the Senate Energy Committee are asking the White House to withdraw the nomination of the Montana woman chosen by President Biden to head the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. As MTN's Mike Dennison reports, the White House says it's standing by its choice of Tracy Stone Manning.
Senator Daines and other Republican members of the Senate Energy Committee asked the White House on Wednesday to withdraw Stone Manning's nomination to lead the BLM, which manages 245 million acres of federal land. They said she'd made false and misleading statements about her involvement in a 1989 tree spiking incident in a national forest in Idaho. They also released a letter from a former Forest Service investigator who said Stone Manning was part of the group that planned the spiking and that she didn't cooperate with prosecutors until facing possible charges. Stone Manning admits to sending a letter to the Forest Service in 1989 notifying it of the tree spiking, but in her written responses she says she did so only because she feared the people who spiked the trees would not send the letter and that loggers could get hurt if they unknowingly sawed into the spiked trees. After getting immunity from prosecution, she testified against the tree spikers at a 1993 federal trial where 2 of them were convicted. She also said she had no involvement in the spiking in any way. The White House says it stands by Stone Manning's statements, as well as her nomination. A White House spokeswoman said Stone Manning is a dedicated public servant who is well qualified to lead the BLM. Stone Manning was director of the State Department of Environmental Quality under former Governor Steve Bullock and state director for U.S. Senator John Tester. Montana-based conservation groups this week defended Stone Manning as someone who will work with all parties in managing public lands and said she's been the target of an organized smear campaign. A vote on her confirmation in the evenly split Senate committee could come as early as next week. The Democratic chair of the committee, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, hasn't said publicly how he plans to vote. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Thank you so much, Mike. We have more ahead on the new news. The Montana community shows its support by coming together to keep an important piece of history rolling. We'll explain. The time is now 12:08, but first, Miller's up next with your statewide weather forecast.